Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After running through the news you need to know about, we run you through the Fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. There's a ton of stuff to talk about on today's show. I want to get some of the smaller stories out of the way first, because God knows I'm going to spend a ton of time on the big topics that's happened since last episode. So let's start with this news story. The Dolphins have released defensive tackle Adam Butler due to a failed physical. Butler played 53% of the snaps last year. He only tallied, I think, two sacks with 17 tackles, which is obviously really, really bad. And the Dolphins will also save $4 million with this move that they've made by releasing him. So I don't know. They obviously brought John Jenkins back. They have a lot of good depth there. I like the defensive tackle rotation. I don't think this is too big of a deal. That position obviously has a lot of depth. Adam Butler, I would say he played fine, even though his stats weren't good at all. He had some moments which were good. His best attribute had always been pass rusher and being kind of a really mobile, athletic defensive tackle. And that's not really what the team needed. It didn't really help anything. They needed someone who could come in like a John Jenkins and help against the run on first and second down. So he really didn't add much other than depth to a pass rush, which really wasn't needed because the Dolphins had Zach Sealer and Christian Wilkins and Raekwon Davis. You would rather have those guys on the field on third and long than Adam Butler, obviously. So he didn't really add much to the defense. So this doesn't come to a surprise. It's not, I don't think, a bad move. I think it's a good move. Obviously, they save money, and they already have a lot of depth there. Either way, I would say his season was. I wouldn't say it was. I guess I'd say it's disappointing. Is what it is. It wasn't the greatest roster move looking back on it, though. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. The latest on Byron Jones. As training camp opened last month, the Dolphins placed cornerback Byron Jones on the physically unable to perform list, the PUP list. Recent remarks made on his status by Mike McDaniel furthered the level of uncertainty surrounding the 29-year-old. McDaniel acknowledged via the Miami Herald that there is a concern with where Jones is at this time during his recovery. The former Pro Bowler had ankle surgery in March, a procedure which was at the time said to require only a 2-month recovery period. Obviously, things have kind of fallen into that uncertainty area. There was a report earlier that said that he would be ready for Week 1. But we'll see. I don't think he'll miss a month of the season. It sucks that he can't. I mean, the good thing is that he's played in this system for a while. The sucky thing about Byron Jones ever since he became a Dolphin is he's dealt with a lot of injury issues. Obviously, the ankle, the Achilles. He's had some Achilles issues. He's played hurt a lot. It sucks that we haven't really gotten to seeing him at full health. He was healthy. I'd say he was more healthy last year than he was the year before. I hope, honestly, I'm okay, especially with the emergence of Trill Williams in training camp and Igbenogany playing a lot better. And obviously they still have Nick Needham. They have a lot of guys in the secondary that they could rotate in and out of that slot position if they needed to. Obviously Byron plays outside, but they can maybe put Igbenogany outside. Maybe you just keep Nick at the slot position. Maybe you put Nick outside and put Igbenogany as the slot corner. Or you throw in Trill Williams. So the Dolphins have a lot of depth there. I think it's a good idea, even if it takes a month out of the regular season. There is no reason not to do it. He knows the system. It's not like he's missing anything. I would rather him come back healthy and really get the first healthy Byron Jones. We really haven't seen that as Dolphins fans yet. So I'm okay with them letting him chill for a while. Now, we don't know, and training camp and some of these joint practices are really going to tell us, is the Igbenogany thing real, and is some of the Trill Williams stuff real? Now, I don't know why it wouldn't be, because they've been practicing against Waddle and Tyreek Hill, some of the best receivers in the league. Both, by the way, could be top 5 receivers. Obviously, Tyreek Hill already is, but Jalen Waddle has the talent to be. And apparently they've been killing it in camp, and so is Igbenogany and Troy Williams. So my point is the Dolphins want to, and I think this would be the smart thing to do, let them rest for a month. If training camp goes well, it continues to go well, and preseason goes well for the young corners, there's no reason for us to rush him back. And honestly, sorry guys, I think we would all rather see a healthy Byron Jones, because like I said, I don't think we've really gotten that too much. I'm also, one thing I will throw in here, I'm also excited. I think, we've heard a lot of some of the stuff that the Dolphins are going to be a little bit more varied defensively in some of their coverage stuff. Maybe throw in some more cover 4, which is where Mike McDaniel came from. The Niners run a lot of cover 4. They really relied on their pass rush and played a lot of zone. I think we're going to see a lot of more cover 4 than we did, way more cover 4 than we did last year, which I think benefits people like Igbenogany and Byron Jones, especially Byron, who in Dallas really was a fantastic zone corner, especially in cover 2. So I think some of that stuff is really going to help him have a career year as a Dolphin, especially. I think this is going to be his best year, especially if we can rest him and he comes back healthy. All right. Plus, he's working with, obviously, Patrick Surtain and Sam Madison, which is always fun to see them in the interviews. This is by far the funnest year to watch positional coach video, like interviews on the Dolphins channel. Just because it's like all these great players on this coaching staff, which is really cool. So yeah, if I'm the Dolphins, just rest Byron Jones. There's really no reason to just be like, hey, you got to come back really fast. And some other news, which is really exciting. Now you guys can go read this yourself. It's literally just full of quotes, but the title is what's important because it really describes how well of a training camp these guys have had. And this comes from the Palm Beach Post. Braylon Sanders and Eric Zukama have had a fantastic training camp. Now, I'm sure if you guys have been attuned to the social media, you've seen a lot of their highlights. They've been, and according to everyone else, they've had a great training camp, and the coaches and players, the veteran players have all said that. It makes me really excited, especially Eric, because he brings such a different dimension to the team. He's a big physical guy. They don't, ever since getting rid of DP, they don't really have that guy. So he can definitely fill that role, and he's gonna be great at run blocking. He's really good after the catch, and he brings just kind of a different aspect to the team. And same thing with Braylon Sanders. He's more of the same build as the other players. Like he's 6'1". He ran a 4.2, basically a 4.3. Similar to Cedric Wilson, obviously coming out of Ole Miss. So I'm excited for him too. It's nice to see him really kind of, especially in the early in the year, especially. It's going to be really hard to defend us because we have so many fast receivers on this team. It's going to be so fun to watch this offense play. And we'll talk more about that later. But I just wanted to bring this up that Braylon Sanders and Eric Zukama, two of the kind of under the radar, especially Braylon. It's nice to see. I didn't expect these guys to have such a hot start to their career. And this is what Wes Welker, obviously the receiver coach, had to say about them. You guys, there's tons of quotes in this article if you guys want to go read it. And this was what Wes had to say about, I believe, Eric. He said, quote, "He has great hands. He's got speed. He's doing a lot of great things out there. He's got great body control." And then it goes on and on and on. Everybody has great things. Tua had this to say about both of them. He said, "I've been very impressed with them. They have very good ball tracking skills. They're long, they're fast, and for big guys, for pretty lanky guys, they're fast," is what he said. So it's just really, I didn't really expect that. And definitely it gets me even more excited to watch preseason. To see these guys play against other teams. And I really want to, and when we get done with all the news and stuff, I really want to make a list before, I have this list, I already made it, breaking down like the guys I'm most excited to see in preseason. And I think that's it for the little stuff, hold on. Is there anything else that I missed? This is something that I got completely wrong on the last podcast, and I feel like a moron. But okay, I guess I read either a old article or a article that had some of the stuff wrong. The Dolphins aren't. No, okay. Here, I got the date wrong. They're not gonna, or maybe it was the wrong article. I don't know. The point is they're not playing. They're not having a joint practice against, I believe, Chicago until the 24th or 25th, or maybe I got that wrong. It wasn't when I said it was, but they are having joint practices with the Buccaneers on August 10th and 11th, which is right before the preseason game, which is on the 13th. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I got that wrong. I don't know what. Either I read an old article or that they're not, or it was just at a later date. I don't know. What else did I? I'm very excited. Obviously, very excited to see. Obviously, I think the most I'm excited is just how Tua does, because he's had such a great training camp, and we're gonna get into that stuff here in a second. But I want to see how the offense does against other competition. But let's get into this stuff, because this stuff it gives me a headache even thinking about it. Obviously, the Stephen Ross stuff over the last week has been tough, and I have so many opinions on this. It's such a stupid story that it just. The amount of scandals, before we get into this, the amount of scandals under his ownership that have happened is bananas, dude. We think about the bully stuff that happened with Richie and Jonathan Martin, the cocaine with the coaches, okay, and even just some of the Adam Gase stuff was just out of control. The whole him, living in New York for most of the time, not really being around the Florida's all that stuff, and then you get here, and then it's like, oh, it never ends with Stephen Ross. Somehow he has to get in trouble somehow, and then obviously with the whole tampering thing, which honestly I don't even blame him for it. It is, and I guess we'll just get into it. This news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins owner Stephen Ross suspended team docked draft picks for tampering. And we've talked about this on the podcast before. Obviously, they were tampering to get Tom Brady on the team, along with Sean Payton, mainly with the whole Tom Brady thing on the yacht. We've not reported, but we've read the articles before. They had him on the yacht, yada yada yada. They tampered in January. Obviously, you're not allowed to do that, and they got very harsh punishment. Ross will be suspended through October 17th of this year. He is also banned from all league committees and is not allowed to attend league meetings until March 2023. In addition, he has been fined $1.5 million. The draft picks the team is forfeiting are the first-round selection, theirs, not the Niners, for the 2023 draft, as well as a third-rounder in 2024. Okay, first of all, one of the funny things that sucks about this, somehow Tom Brady still haunts the Dolphins in one of the dumbest ways of all time. So that's great. So that's another reason to hate Tom Brady. And, of course, Tom doesn't get in trouble for any of this, which I don't know. I've heard other people say that, and I was like, well, is there any penalty for players doing that? I would love to know if players can be punished for contacting. I guess they could, right? I don't know. I don't think it's ever happened before. I mean, didn't Earl Thomas in a video he offered? He was like, I want to play. I don't know. He wanted to play for the Cowboys or whatever the heck that situation was. Anyway, here's one of my points that I want to say, because I'm so upset about it, the whole thing. Number one, I don't care that Stephen Ross did this. And one of the things I really want to bring up is how they talk about this whole situation, I think, is really stupid. He tried to tank for Joe Burrow. The whole tanking thing blows my mind. How could you do this? It's like people do it all the time. All the time. Franchises do it to get great players. It's actually celebrated in the NBA. With the whole lottery thing, and franchises want to tank for a certain college player or high school player. It happens all the time in sports media, and how they talk about it all the time. It happens in sports all the time. It happens in the NFL. So many franchises have done it so many times. The Colts did it for Andrew Luck. Now, they didn't purposely want Peyton Manning to get hurt. The Cleveland Browns did it for years, obviously. So many teams have done it in the history of the league. Even like in the 80s, there's documentaries about teams tanking for certain players and being openly about it, and their GMs talking about it in the documentaries. How they knew they weren't going to be good, how they needed to restart. So they did. Even the whole Jimmy Johnson thing, him, kind of pulling the rug out from under all that stuff. So it just, getting rid of Herschel Walker for draft picks and so on and so forth. Like, it's happened a million times. People, it just blows my mind that people are like, how can Stephen Ross do that? It's like, yeah, because he wanted at the end of the day, it was for Joe Burrow. By the way, does anybody and everybody at the time in 2019, I was the only one, I'm not a fan of tanking. I hate it. It's stupid. But at the time, and I'm sure all Dolphins fans felt this way even now, everybody wanted to tank to get the number 1 overall pick that year. Everybody did. Even the fans wanted it. So it just blows my mind that for some reason in sports media, they vilify Stephen Ross for that. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I have no problem with what he did. Even if he offered Brian Flores money to buy the number 1 overall pick, I'm completely fine with that decision. I don't care. We won, 6 or 5 games that year? We were awful, especially at the beginning of that year. Who cares if we all knew we were going to be bad going into that season too? And if you would have told me at the end of the year in the draft, we would have been drafting one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL, I would have no problem with that. So, yeah, that's one of the things that really bothered me. And then the second thing is the whole tampering thing. I like I said, I'm not even mad at Stephen Ross. And I know some people's take is like, well, the reason I'm mad at him is because he didn't execute it well. My thing is like the league has turned a blind eye a lot to those situations, and the situations have been reported and been public knowledge. And I have no problem with him trying to go out and get Tom Brady and Sean Payton. So it doesn't really bother me that he even tried to do it or even failed to do it. All of these had the intention to win behind it. One of the most famous tampering situation in the history of the league is how the Dolphins got Don Shula. So, I don't know. It doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't bother me at all. And another piece of this that really, really makes me mad is, and I've always felt this way about sports punishments all the time. Why would you punish the fans? It doesn't make any sense to me. If you want to suspend a player, obviously that's completely fine, or suspend an owner or anything like that. But taking the future from a team, it doesn't hurt anybody but the fans. Why are you taking draft picks from a franchise? It's not about... The whole league is built off fans, okay? The only reason it exists is because people pay for jerseys, to go to stadium, all of that stuff. Leave the draft picks out of it. It has nothing to do with anything that Stephen Ross did. It doesn't punish Stephen Ross. Stephen Ross has billions of dollars. He's going to bed at night, it sucks that we don't have He doesn't care enough. He's a billionaire, for God's sakes. I don't know how you would You really can't punish owners anyway. They're billionaires. Who cares at the end of the day? So it really takes me off that... And it doesn't matter I've had the same opinion of when this happens to other franchises. I just always felt it was dumb. If you want to make whoever owns whatever, fire whoever, or step down, if that's the punishment you want to go for. We've seen other leagues make owners step down. But I just always felt like taking draft picks, or even like what happened to the U and SMU, is like, all right, that's too much. It has nothing to do with the people that, it has to do with the fans. Like, all you're hurting is the fans at that point. Um, yeah, the whole thing sucks. Another thing that ticks me off about this is everything's been so positive in this off season. Um, everything's been so positive. Uh, the Dolphins, and we're going to get into this, and this is one of the criticisms I had last week. The offense kind of got off to a slow start to training camp the first 2 days, and ever since then they've been just killing it. And even people like Omar Kelly, who's the biggest skeptic, negative person possible. Even he is like, yeah, Tua's having a great camp, the offense is having a great camp, or at least better than it has been in years past. So I'm, as a fan, I'm on cloud 9, hearing all that stuff. I'm so happy. Just all of the highlights of Tua throwing deep passes and throwing for touchdown. It's like stuff we have not seen ever since Twitter was a thing. And some of the teams have been posting about it. We haven't seen any of that stuff. Like maybe we would get one a year. So to have all that hype and positivity, Mike McDaniel has been killing it as the head coach so far. Chris Greer did such a good job this offseason, just getting all these players together on one team. To have this happen, it's just like, ugh, it just sucks. It's so stupid, and like I said, for something for here, I can't even. So many thoughts just hit my brain and I can't speak, but I think the thing that makes me the most mad about it is it's something that happens all the time, and just how the media is just feels like, I guess because they don't have anything else to talk about, and the fact that Tom Brady's involved in the story and Sean Payton, it's just been blown up way too much, in my opinion. And it just sucks to hear it constantly on sports talk, and if you're a sports fan like I do watch sports media a lot. So it sucks to have to hear all that, because it just doesn't. It's like they're exaggerating the entire thing, in my opinion. I don't know. It sucks that this rain cloud had to come over the Dolphins, because they've been killing it. And they still are killing it. And I hope this doesn't affect Tua in any way. Somehow quarterback news still has to get to. Even when they asked him about it, I just wanted to punch every reporter in the audience. It's like, dude, shut up. I mean, for the love of God, dude. So it was just like, it just sucks that it kind of dampened everything. I feel like everything's kind of coming back now. It just overshadowed a lot of the great stuff that the team has done. And in an unnecessary way, in my opinion. I felt like the punishment was too harsh. I think the media, especially with the tanking stuff, has exaggerated it a lot, and made it seem like Stephen Ross was like betting on games or something. Like that's how like upset they are at the whole thing. It's like, dude, this is like probably the most common thing in team building is tanking. How many GMs have we heard talk about it? How many great head coaches have we heard talk about starting over? It just doesn't make any sense to me. The whole thing is just kind of dumb, and that's basically my opinion on it. Like I said, I think the thing that sucks most about the whole thing is just the rain cloud that it put over the off season. Or just like a small, we're having, as a fan, it's like, dude, we're killing it. It's cool to watch all this stuff that, we're doing so well, and then that happens. It's like, Jesus God. And now we have to hear about it every day, and it's just annoying. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's just annoying. I feel bad for Tua. I really do. I can't, if he really does turn, and it seems like he has, if he really does turn it all, it's going to be one of the greatest sports stories of all time. I really don't think a quarterback has ever dealt with that much off the field issues in terms of sports media and constantly being talked about, his own team undermining him, and turned it around like that. I think the closest I can think to is maybe Jim Plunkett, who was a high draft pick and kind of turned his entire career around after all that. So yeah, it just sucks. It's just annoying, I would say. So I think that is all for the news, and I want to get into some of the more positive. No, it's not all for the news, but I want to get more positive stuff, which is training camp. And by everybody's, even the negative beat writers, overall, and we're not going to be doing any recaps because there's so many, but overall, and I think everybody who's consumed, you just had to have watched clips and videos. Tua has been doing a really good job. The offense has taken off. This is the most successful and consistent I've seen an offense in training camp since I've started doing these podcasts. This is by far the best start an offense has had. It's not even close. It just looks easy for them. The blocking on the offensive line has looked, from what people have been saying, and just from some of the stuff that we've seen in videos, it just looks a lot better. I can't wait to see what the offense does against other competition. And it just gets me really excited. It's such a nice breath of fresh air to see this, because we haven't seen it in years. And I think this is the year. I think this offense is going to be really, really, really good. And like I said, the last episode, I felt like I was a little I was disappointed. I was really disappointed with how the offense started, but ever since then, they've exceeded my expectations, especially Tua. He's completely exceeded. I did not expect some of the throws he's made in 11-on-11s and even in 1-on-1s has been phenomenal throws. Phenomenal. Really, really nice stuff from him. And just to see some of the bootleg stuff, it's going to be really fun to watch Tua, and the offense really utilize his athleticism to help him in the passing game, and not be some stupid, uncreative some of the bootlegs that we ran with and sprint outs with Chan Gailey and stuff like that. It's just nice to see an offense that's innovative and a scheme that really works. I'm just really, really, really excited. Obviously, I don't know. I'm just really, really hyped. Chase Edmonds looks really good too. Better than I thought he would. And yeah, I'm just really, 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 really excited to watch this offense kill it. I think Tua is gonna have a great year. I can already tell. I don't want to sound too overly put the cart ahead of the horse, whatever the saying is, but I just from what I've seen so far, he just looks way better than he did a year ago. Especially on a lot of his down the field throws. He just looks a lot better. And so, before we get into the fan Q&A, I wanted to list some of the players that I'm really excited to see in preseason. Obviously, Braylon Sanders and Eric Zukama is a giving. I'm really excited to see them in the preseason. Skylar Thompson, I think, is a must-watch. I'm excited to see what he can do in preseason. He's had a pretty good offseason so far, so it's going to be fun to watch him play football. Hunter Long, very excited to see him. Apparently he's had a pretty up-and-down camp, but I'm excited because I think he fits the scheme a lot, and I'm excited to see what he does in preseason. Channing Tindall, very excited to see what he does. Obviously, first-round pick for the Dolphins. Maybe he can. We'll see what he can do at the middle linebacker position. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I think he's definitely going to be a utility situational type of a player this year, but I think he can make a few splash plays in preseason. So, and obviously, I'm excited to see Tua, but I'm not going to. We won't see him for at least until the second week of preseason. I don't think he'll play in the first week. So very excited to see some of the offensive linemen as well, like Eichenberg and Connor Williams throughout the preseason, just to see how they work as a unit. In the run game, the running backs, very excited to see how they do. And that competition is going to be really fun to watch. And then Monogany. So there's a lot of really cool stories and players to kind of follow throughout the preseason that might not get starting jobs. That's how much depth this team has. I'm really excited to see a lot of the young players play. Even players like Mohamed Sanu, I'm excited to see what he'll do. And I cannot wait to see everybody together on all the starters together on the field, and they go down, especially at home in Miami. That's gonna be fun to watch in that stadium. So I'm very excited for all of those players. Really pulling for Hunter too. I think he has a lot of talent, and if he can, obviously we know Gesicki's good, and it is gonna be interesting to see his transition to this offense. From all reports, it's kind of been a slow transition. Here's one thing I will say about Mike. It would be really nice if he can be playable on first and second down in this offense, because that would allow for a lot of deception, obviously, and big plays down the field on play action. So that's why I would like to see Hunter Long step up as well, because he is more physical. He's a way more physical tight end, and he has, at least in college, he had a lot of really good receiving aspects to his game. So we'll see what the tight end group does, but I think those guys are going to be pretty crucial to the offense, and how far it could go if those guys kind of step up to the plate and can run block a little bit better. But yeah, I have thoroughly. This has been the most excited I've been for a season ever since I've been doing the show, especially offensively. I'm very, very excited to even watch preseason. Like I said, there's so much depth on this team. There's going to be a lot of fun players to watch. Even Teddy Bridgewater is going to take a significant amount of snaps in preseason, and he's going to be throwing to Eric Zukama and Braylon Sanders and some of these younger players. So it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this preseason, and I just can't wait for these guys to line up and kill it. Most excited I've been for a quarterback season by far since I've been doing this show, especially watching him, seeing everything we've seen from Tua so far. He looks great, and I am so happy that, because like I said, last week to this week is completely different. I was disappointed how the first two practices went, and then since then it's just been amazing. Like I said, it completely exceeded my expectations. So let's get into the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. And I think we covered all the news. And one thing I want to bring up too, I think the scheme for the offensive lineman is much better than it was a year ago, and that's not even fair. It's very obvious in some of the videos that we've seen so far, and just. It's just going to really help the offensive line out and grow and be, I think, a lot better than it was a year ago. This next question comes from Nothing Face. He says, if you could go back in time and grab Dan Marino in his prime and drop him into this offense, how many passing yards and touchdowns do you think he would have this year? And this question comes from Nothing Face. Nothing Face. I thought I said Fox. Nothing Face. I think, especially if Dan had someone like Mike Shanahan back then, I think they definitely would have, especially in the early 90s, I think they could have won a Super Bowl. And even to the mid to late 90s, that scheme really helped prolong Elway's career, because it wasn't just all on him. And I think if Dan had a scheme like that, obviously, I think for sure would have won a Super Bowl. So yeah, if Dan had that scheme with this, with these receiving players, yeah, and especially with the way the rules are now, I think he could get to 60, especially with the extra game. I think he would. Okay, here's what I think he'd have. I think he'd have 58 touchdowns and 5,500 yards. 58 touchdowns, 5,500 yards. I think those would be his stats. It would just be too hard to defend him. And if you give Dan a running game, not to sound too crazy, because I'm sure most of the people here probably haven't done it, but if you go back and watch some of the classic Marino games, even if it's I guess Bears isn't a great example because they had such a good front, but their running game was awful. Even from a schematic standpoint, it was pretty stupid. It was very bare bones. Like I said, if you put him in the Shanahan offense, I feel like his numbers would be insane, and I think obviously the win totals would have been a lot better. This next question comes from Steve. He says, so far in camp, Tua has reminded, or excuse me, let me restart this. This question comes from Steve. He says, so far in camp, Tua has remained the same, well, I didn't expect you to say that. The same inconsistent quarterback that has been here since 2 years ago, and is still not standing out. I understand it's still early, but how does this concern you forward now that the team has lost a chunk of the draft capital due to the Stephen Ross situation? Okay, first of all, I cannot disagree with that statement more. I feel like you've been living under a rock a little bit. I don't know where you're getting that from, Steve. I guess you haven't been impressed with some of the stuff you've seen, some of the throws you've seen. You know, a lot of people have said on the first 60-yard touchdown to Tyreek Hill, it was single high safety, it was man-to-man across the board. He just threw a pass today that was, I think it was, I would have to go back and look, but there was definitely a safety over the top and a corner underneath, and he still fit it in to a tight window for down the sideline for a long throw. So I think he's been very consistent. I think some of the articles that have portrayed his, some of the early practices, I think were a little too exaggerated. His numbers were still really good in practices, so I think he's been very consistent, and he's looked a lot better than he did a year ago. So I do disagree with that. I will say that the draft capital thing, it just sucks either way. Even if Tua destroys, and it's it would have been nice to have 2 first-round picks to just keep loading up, or use those to go get maybe another great veteran player. And again, I just hate the fact that, why would you take the draft picks away? Who does that hurt other than the fans? It just doesn't make any sense to me. This next question comes from TR3MC. He says, I think Tua has done a great job with all the circumstances surrounding him, coming out of college, injured and all. What does he have to prove exactly this year to show he's the quarterback of the future? I just continue to play like he's played in practice. Stretch the field. You know, one thing I will say about his practices so far that I've really noticed, it's a lot smoother, and more effortless his throwing than it was a year ago, even 2 years ago. Obviously, it is a drastic difference. He looks like the quarterback that he was in college, the way he's throwing the football right now. It's just a lot different. It's smoother. It's easier. You can tell he's not straining to do it at all. All of his deep throws were tight spirals. He's had a great control of the football so far in camp. You can tell. Even that net throw. Just some of the throws he's made over the middle. Everything. You can tell. And I think the scheme itself is going to help him a lot, especially because the bootlegs in the Shanahan scheme, it's not just it's not like a normal boot. They have so many actions off of the play action bootleg game. And we've seen some of that in training camp so far, how creative it can be. So I think for all of those reasons, it's going to help Tua have a really good year. Not only the fact that he's just grown as a player, and I feel like it's pretty obvious. I think he looks completely different than he did last year. And I'm being serious. He looks like a different thrower. Even comparing I don't know why I keep repeating myself, but it is a completely different look from week 1 last year to this practice this year. He's clearly a lot more healthy and just a better player, I think. This next question comes from Steve. He says, what are your thoughts on Stephen Ross and his actions? Was he wrong for doing what he did, or was he simply just doing everything he could to ensure the success for the franchise? I'm in the camp of he did all the things he did had the best of intentions behind it, and I would have made the same decisions if I was him. I'm being dead serious. I wouldn't have tanked, but I respect the decision to. I understand. I shouldn't say I respect it. I understand it, and it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. And even though I hate tanking, I cannot. If I was an owner, I would never tank. I'm just gonna be real. I just couldn't be we're going into this year, to start over. I guess to lose basically. I mean, not basically. It is to lose. I just hate that. I just don't understand. And I know it's to win in the long term, but even now, like that, it would suck to be like, all right, we're gonna suck this year. But I understand it, and it is a very successful, obviously, team building thing to do. If you look at the history of the league, like so many great dynasties have started that way. So yeah, even the Niners, like there have been a lot of like hard resets that have happened, and the franchise came on the other end very successful. So to answer your question, Steve, I would say that I'm more in the camp of I don't fault Stephen Ross at all. This next question comes from Steve. This last question, he says, everyone is talking about whether Tua will improve and become the franchise quarterback, but Tua's injury history is seldom mentioned. How concerned are you with him health-wise and his availability due to injury moving forward if he does improve on the field and solidify himself? It's a very good question, Steve. I do feel like it has been mentioned very lightly, but I will say in terms of his injury history, the 17 games is rough. I think that because of the heavy run game style of this offense and the fact that hopefully if the run game is successful, you're going to get into a lot of third and short situations, which really opens up the playbook. It makes Tua a lot harder to defend when every pass can get a first down. So the fact that it's shorter yardage, he's going to get the ball out of his hands quicker. So, and defenses, some at least, tend to play softer coverage on third and short, which is weird, but that's a whole nother topic for another day. But I think that's going to really help alleviate the pressure on him and his body, not to get hit as much. So I think for all those reasons, I think I would expect him to have a pretty healthy year overall. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I'm very excited for the year, obviously. I feel like I'm ending this podcast the same way as I did last week. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And I can't wait for the next one. I think the next one, it'll be right after the preseason game, so we'll have a lot to talk about and break down. And very excited to see how they do against Tampa Bay. So, and one quote I want to mention before I leave that I thought was very interesting is Mohamed Sanu, who just got there, being very excited about this team and talking about how he believes this team can be great. And I thought that was very interesting. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.